The midnight silence of the Virginia countryside shattered as a German Shepherd puppy clawed frantically at Emma Parker's bedroom window. The 8-year-old girl woke with a start, heart pounding. Outside, the trembling pup stared back at her, its dark eyes full of urgency more than fear. It was as if it understood. "What's wrong, boy?" Emma whispered, sliding the window open. Instead of coming inside, the puppy barked once sharp and urgent, then turned and darted toward the edge of the property. Under the pale moonlight, Emma followed its gaze and froze. There, near the fence line, a larger German Shepherd lay still, only the faint rise and fall of her chest betraying life. Her hind leg was twisted unnaturally in the jaws of a cruel metal trap. Emma had just 12 hours to save a life she never knew existed. As dawn broke, golden light spilled across the dewy grass. Emma led her grandmother, Abigail, through the field toward the wounded dog. The closer they got, the clearer the truth became. This was no stray. The mother shepherd's once sleek coat was matted with blood and dirt. Her amber eyes, clouded with pain, never left Emma and the approaching humans. "Oh, my stars," Abigail gasped, placing a hand on Emma's shoulder. "That poor creature." Emma knelt in the grass, keeping her distance. The puppy hovered close, whimpering softly as though pleading on its mother's behalf. "She's in bad shape, Grandma," Emma said. "That trap Mr. Wilson warned us about those, the illegal ones." Abigail nodded grimly. "We'll need Dr. Bennett. I'll get the truck ready." As they moved closer, the mother dog gave a weak growl, but pain soon overwhelmed her. Still, even in agony, she nudged her pup behind her, protective, alert. "It's okay, girl," Emma whispered. "We're going to help you. I promise." Dr. Bennett arrived within the hour, his dusty pickup rattling into the driveway. The old veterinarian had served their county for 4 decades, tough as leather, with hands that knew pain and healing. "This is bad business," he muttered, examining the trap while Abigail gently restrained the mother dog. Purebred German Shepherd, no collar, but definitely not wild. The puppy clung to Emma's leg as they watched Dr. Bennett work. "How bad is it?" she asked, dreading the answer. "The bone's not broken, thank heaven, but the infection's spreading fast. High fever. If it hits the bloodstream, she won't make it." "How long do we have?" Abigail asked. 12 hours, maybe less. "She needs emergency care in Charlottesville, and they close at midnight." Emma's small shoulders tensed. That puppy hadn't scratched at her window by chance. It had chosen her. Now she had to act. 6 months earlier, Emma had stood alone at recess, clutching her sketchbook as the other second graders played in noisy clusters. Her drawings, foxes, owls, deer, were her world. "Hey, animal girl." Bethany Miller sneered, marching over with her usual entourage. "Still talking to squirrels?" Emma said nothing. "It was always worse when she did. My dad says your grandma talks to birds." "You're both freaks." Laughter followed, sharp and stinging. Emma stared at her sketchbook. These animals made sense. People DIDN single quotes T. Later that day, Ms. Winters stopped her in the hall. "Emma, I saw your drawings. They're incredible. Have you thought about the Young Naturalists Club?" Emma blinked, caught off guard. "A compliment?" She shook her head. "Well, you should. Sometimes it helps to find people who see the world like you do." That evening, Emma sat beside Abigail on the porch swing, watching fireflies dance across the meadow. "Ms. Winters says I'm good at drawing animals." "Of course you are," Abigail said. "You see what others don't. That's a gift. The other kids think it's weird. Let them. Most people walk through life blind. You've got your eyes wide open." Inside, her parents argued again. Emma could hear her name in their muffled voices. "They're talking about me," she murmured. Abigail sighed. "Your mama worries. She wants you to fit in easier than she did. She didn't fit in? Lord, no. Carol was a dreamer just like you. But somewhere along the line, she decided dreaming was childish. The screen door creaked open. Emma's mom stepped outside. Bath time, sweetie. You've got school tomorrow. As Emma slipped off the swing, Abigail winked. Remember wide. Open eyes. 2 weeks later, Whiskers didn't come home. Emma searched the farm for days, calling until her voice went hoarse. Her father drove country roads. Her mother made flyers. Even Bethany said she'd keep an eye out. On the 5th day, her father found Whiskers by the highway. Emma didn't cry when they buried him under the old oak tree. Not when her mom awkwardly rubbed her back. Not when her dad talked about cars and accidents, but when Grandma knelt beside her and whispered. It's okay to miss him with your whole heart, Emma crumbled. He understood me. She sobbed, and now here she was, months later, face to face with another creature who needed her. A pup who had run for help. A mother dog who had fought. To live for her baby. Time was running out, and Emma? Emma was ready to fight for them both. Grandmother's shoulder. He never thought I was weird. I know, sweet pea. I know. That evening, Emma's mother approached her with an uncertain smile. I was thinking we might look at kittens next month. Mrs. Peterson's cat just had a litter. And I don't want another cat, Emma said flatly, staring out her bedroom window. Her mother sighed. Honey, I know you're sad, but a new pet can help. Nothing can replace Whiskers. Emma turned, tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. He wasn't just a pet. Emma, it was a cat. I know you loved him, but get out, Emma shouted, surprising Hurst with the force of her anger. Just get out. Her mother's face hardened, then crumpled. Without another word, she turned and left the room. The following months were quiet ones. Emma withdrew further into herself at school, and even at home, she spent more time alone, sketching in her notebook or helping grandmother Abigail in the garden. Her parents exchanged worried glances, but seemed unsure how to bridge the growing distance. One evening in early spring, Emma found a shoebox in the back of her closet while looking for her rain boots. Inside were the toys Whiskers had loved. Asmol catnip mouse, a bell on a string, a crinkly ball. She hadn't been able to look at them after he died. Emma sat on her bedroom floor holding the catnip mouse and remembering how Whiskers would toss it in the air, his agile body twisting and leaping. For the first time, the memory brought a small smile instead of tears. A soft knock on her door interrupted her thoughts. Her father stood in the doorway. His tall frame stooped slightly as if afraid to intrude. Your mom and I are headed to town. For groceries, he said. Want to come along? We could stop for ice cream after. Emma looked down at the toys in the box. No thanks, Dad. He nodded, disappointment flashing briefly across his face before he masked it with a smile. Okay, sweetie. Grandma's downstairs if you need anything. After he left, Emma gathered the toys and carried the box downstairs, finding her grandmother. In her favorite armchair, reading glasses perched on her nose as she thumbed through a gardening magazine. Grandma, do you think there are other animals that might need these? Emma asked, holding up the box. Grandmother Abigail's eyes crinkled warmly. I reckon there's always some creature in need of kindness, Emma. Whiskers would approve of sharing. His treasures. I miss talking to him, Emma admitted. Hellways listened. Some souls are just better at listening than others, her grandmother said, setting aside her magazine. Your grandpa was like that. He didn't say much, but Lord, could that man listen? When he looked at you, you knew you were the only person in the world at that moment. Is that why you talked to him at his grave? I saw you once. Grandmother Abigail nodded. Some connections don't end just because someone's not physically present anymore. Love doesn't work that way. Emma considered this. I think I'd like to help animals that need homes. Maybe at the shelter in town. Well, now that sounds like a fine idea. We could stop by there tomorrow if you'd like. For the first time in months, Emma felt a spark of excitement. Really? Do you think Mom would let me? Your mama wants you to be happy, Emma. She just sometimes forgets that your happiness might look different from what she imagines. The next day, Emma and her grandmother visited the county animal shelter. The small building was overcrowded and understaffed, but the volunteer coordinator, a retired teacher named Mrs. Bennett, was delighted when Emma asked if she could help. "We need all the helping hands we can get," Mrs. Bennett said. "Even young ones. How would you feel about coming in on Saturdays to help socialize the cats? Some of them have had rough lives and need to learn to trust people again." Emma nodded eagerly. "I could do that. I'm good with cats." And so a new routine began. Every Saturday, Emma spent 3 hours at the shelter, sitting quietly in the cat room, allowing the more timid felines to approach her on their own terms. She found that the cats others considered difficult or unfriendly often just needed patience. The same patience she wished her classmates would show her. After a month, Mrs. Bennett pulled Grandmother Abigail aside while Emma was saying goodbye to her favorite shelter residents. "That child has a gift," Mrs. Bennett said. "We had a cat brought in last week that the animal control officer couldn't even handle with thick gloves. Yesterday, I found that same cat curled up in Emma's lap, purring like a motorboat." Grandmother Abigail smiled proudly. She understands what it's like to need time and space. Well, she's welcome here any time. Animals know good souls when they meet them. That evening, as Emma helped her grandmother prepare dinner, she seemed lighter than she had in months. "I think you might be ready," Grandmother Abigail said mysteriously as they set the table. "Ready for what?" "To open your heart again. Not to replace what you lost, but to make room for something new." Emma considered this carefully, placing forks beside each plate. "Maybe," she said cautiously. "But I don't think Mom and Dad want another pet in the house." "We'll cross that bridge when we come to it," her grandmother said with a wink. "Life has a way of bringing exactly what we need, exactly when we need it." Neither of them could have known just how prophetic those words would prove to be 6 months. Later, when a desperate German Shepherd puppy would scratch at Emma's window in the middle of the night, setting in motion events that would change all their lives forever, the converted barn smelled of hay and antiseptics, an odd combination that wrinkled Emma's nose as she watched Dr. Bennett work. The veterinarian's weathered hands moved with practiced precision over the German Shepherd's injured leg, cleaning the wound while Grandmother Abigail held the dog's head, whispering soothing words into its pointed ears. "Easy now, girl. That's it. You're doing just fine," Dr. Bennett murmured as the dog flinched. "Emma, hand me that gauze, would you?" Emma quickly passed the sterile pad, her eyes never leaving the injured animal. The mother dog, Luna, as Emma had decided to call her, was remarkably calm despite her obvious pain. Her amber eyes followed Emma's movements with an intelligence that seemed almost human. The puppy, whom Emma had named Scout, sat pressed against her leg, trembling slightly, but refusing to leave his mother's side. Occasionally, he would whimper softly, and Luna would respond with a low whine, as if reassuring him. "There's something odd here," Dr. Bennett said, frowning as he examined Luna's neck more closely. He brushed back the thick fur, revealing a band of lighter skin. This dog was wearing a collar until very recently. "See this mark? And look at her coat underneath dirt and blood. It's well maintained. So she belongs to someone?" Grandmother Abigail asked. "I'd bet my license on it." Dr. Bennett gently rolled Luna slightly to examine her side. "Hang on a second." His fingers probed carefully along her shoulder blade. "I thought so. She's microchipped." Emma's heart sank. If Luna belonged to someone, that meant she would have to be returned. The thought of separating the injured dog from her puppy, and both of them from Emma, made her chest tighten uncomfortably. "But there's something else," Dr. Bennett continued. His brow furrowed. "This isn't a standard pet microchip." He pulled a small device from his bag and passed it over Luna's shoulder. It emitted a faint beep. "This is a Militera tracking chip, the kind they use for working dogs in the service." "Military?" Grandmother Abigail echoed, surprise evident in her voice. "You mean like those dogs they send to Afghanistan?" "Exactly like that. Canine units, highly trained, incredibly valuable animals." Dr. Bennett sat back on his heels regarding Luna with new respect. That would explain her behavior, her discipline despite the pain, her protective instincts toward both the pup and Emma. "Here." Emma reached out tentatively to stroke Luna's head. The dog leaned slightly into her touch, those intelligent eyes still watching her. "But why would a military dog be caught in a trap in our woods? And where's her handler?" Before Dr. Bennett could answer, the phone in the farmhouse rang. Through the open barn door, they could hear its shrill tone cutting through the morning air. "I'll get it," Grandmother Abigail said, rising stiffly from her kneeling position. "Keep an eye on our patients." "You too?" As she disappeared toward the house, Dr. Bennett continued his treatment, cleaning Luna's wound with careful precision. "This trap is nasty business," he muttered. "Completely illegal in this county. Serrated edges designed to prevent escape." The more she struggled, the deeper it would cut. Emma swallowed hard, fighting back tears at the thought of Luna's suffering. Who would put something like that out there? "Someone who doesn't care about the law or animal suffering," Dr. Bennett replied grimly, "or someone specifically targeting dogs." The puppy whined again, and Emma stroked Hedda's soft fur. Despite his youth, Scout showed remarkable focus and concern for his mother. He hadn't left her side since they'd found them, except to lead Emma to Luna in the first place. How did he know to find me? Emma wondered aloud. Out of all the houses around here, he came straight to my window. Dr. Bennett smiled gently. Animals have instincts we can't begin to understand, Emma. That puppy knew you could help. Maybe he'd seen you before, or maybe he shrugged. Maybe some souls just recognize each other. The barn door cracked open, and Grandmother Abigail returned, her expression troubled. "That was a man on the phone asking about a German Shepherd. Says he's been looking for his dog and puppy for 2 days." Emma felt Scout press closer to her leg. "Did you tell him we found them?" "I said we'd found an injured dog, but didn't mention the military chip or the puppy yet." Grandmother Abigail exchanged a meaningful glance with Dr. Bennett. Something didn't feel right. He was mighty interested in whether the dog had a special collar, but didn't ask once about injuries or condition. Dr. Bennett's frown deepened. Did he identify himself? Said his name was Jackson Miller. Claimed to be from over in Harrisonburg. Said he'd be here in an hour to collect this property. Grandmother Abigail emphasized the last word with distaste. "Miller," Emma repeated, "like Bethany Miller from my class." "Could be related," her grandmother acknowledged. "It's not an uncommon name around here." Dr. Bennett carefully applied antiseptic to Luna's wound. "I don't like this. If this is a military working dog, there are protocols. Her handler wouldn't just show up and call her property. And Hess certainly wouldn't have left her wearing a tracking collar if she'd gone missing." He pulled his phone from his pocket. "I have a buddy who works with the canine program at Quantico. Let me make a call." As Dr. Bennett stepped outside to make his call, Emma looked down at Scout, who was watching her with those soulful brown eyes. "We won't let anything bad happen to you or your mom," she whispered. "I promise." Grandmother Abigail knelt beside Emma. "You've grown mighty attached in just a few hours," she observed gently. "They need me, Grandma," Emma said simply. They came to me for help. A pensive excellence settled over them, broken only by Luna's labored breathing and the distant sound of Dr. Bennett's voice outside. Emma continued to stroke Scout's head, trying to project calm confidence she didn't entirely feel. Something was wrong. She could sense it in her grandmother's tense posture, and in the way Luna's eyes constantly moved toward the barn door as if expecting danger. Dr. Bennett returned, his face grave. My contact confirmed what I suspected. There's a retired canine named Luna who went missing from her handler's home in Richmond 2 weeks ago, along with her 8-week-old puppy. Her handler, Master Sergeant Thomas Walker, was hospitalized after a break-in at his home. He's been searching for her ever since he was released. So this Jackson Miller is lying? Grandmother Abigail concluded. Almost certainly, Dr. Bennett. Nodded. My contact is reaching out to Sergeant Walker now. But we have another problem. Luna needs more intensive care than I can provide here. That wound is severely infected, and the antibiotics I've given her are just a stopgap. She needs 4 antibiotics and possibly surgery to clean out the infected tissue. Emma felt panic rising in her chest. But what about the man who's coming? We can't let him take them. No, we certainly can't. Grandmother Abigail agreed. But we also need to get Luna the care she needs. She turned to Dr. Bennett. How much time do we have? If we get her to the emergency veterinary hospital in Charlottesville within the next 8 hours, she has a fighting chance. After that, he shook his head grimly. The sound of tires on gravel interrupted them. Through Thebern window, Emma could see a dusty blue pickup truck pulling into the driveway, still distant, but approaching steadily. He's early, Grandmother Abigail said tersely. Emma, take Scout and hide in the tack room. Dr. Bennett and I will handle this. But Emma began to protest. No arguments, young lady. That puppy trusts you, and he needs to stay calm and quiet. Now go on. Reluctantly, Emma gathered Scout in her arms. The puppy, sensing her anxiety, remained still and silent as she carried him to the small room at the back of the barn, where her grandfather had kept his saddles and riding equipment. Through a crack in the door, she could see Luna struggle to rise as the sound of the truck grew louder, her protective instincts overriding her pain. Stay down, sweet girl, Dr. Bennett said soothingly, gently restraining the dog. We'll handle this. Emma held Scout close, her heart pounding as she heard car doors slam and footsteps approach at the barn. The ticking clock of Luna's condition now had a new urgency. They needed to get rid of this imposter quickly to save her life. But as the barn door creaked open and she heard a man's rough voice asking about his dogs, Emma was struck by a terrible realization. The countdown wasn't just about saving Luna's life anymore. It was about protecting both dogs from whoever had stolen them, hurt them, and was now trying to reclaim them. And somehow, in the space of just a few hours, that responsibility had fallen squarely on the shoulders of an 8-year-old girl who, until today, hadn't been allowed to have a pet of her own. Emma pressed her eye closer to the crack in the tack room door, Scout trembling silently in her arms. The man who entered the barn was tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in worn jeans and a flannel shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal tattooed forearms. His face, partially hidden beneath a baseball cap, was weathered and stern. Appreciate you calling me so quick, ma'am, he said to Grandmother Abigail, his voice carrying a forced politeness that made Emma's skin prickle. Been worried sick about my dogs. Dr. Bennett stood protectively near Luna, his medical bag strategically placed to hide the bandaged wound. You say these are your dogs, Mr. Miller? Call me Jackson, the man said with an uneasy smile that didn't reach his eyes. And yes, sir, that's my Luna. Been with me 3 years now. He glanced around the barn. The pup should be around too. Little male about this big, he indicated with his hands. Grandmother Abigail folded her arms across her chest. You seem to know what they look like, but I'm curious. Could you tell us a bit more about them? Luna is an unusual name for a male dog, isn't it? Emma caught her breath. Luna was female, not male. The man had just made a critical mistake. Miller's smile faltered momentarily. Well, full name's Lunar on account of his dark coat. Call him Luna for short. I see, Dr. Bennett said evenly. And what commands does he respond to? German Shepherds are highly trained animals after all. Standard stuff. Sit, stay, fetch. Miller shrugged. Look, I appreciate your concern, but these are my dogs, and I'd like to take them home now. Luna, who had been watching the exchange with weary eyes, let out a low growl as Miller took a step closer. The sound was weak but unmistakably threatening. Doesn't seem to recognize you, Grandmother Abigail observed. He's hurt and confused, Miller countered, his friendly demeanor beginning to crack. And where's the pup? I know he was with Luna when they get loose. Emma felt Scout press closer to her, as if understanding they were discussing him. She stroked his head silently, willing him to remain quiet. Mr. Miller, Dr. Bennett said, his tone hardening, this dog has a severe injury from an illegal trap. As the county veterinarian, I'm obligated to report this to the authorities. Miller's face darkened. That's unfortunate, but has nothing to do with me. My property strayed onto someone else's land, got hurt, and now I'm here to take them home and get them proper care. That's another interesting point, Grandmother Abigail said. You haven't once asked about the nature of the injury or what treatment might be needed. Listen, lady. The sound of tires on gravel interrupted whatever Miller had been about to say. Through the crack in the door, Emma saw his head look toward the barn entrance, tension evident in his posture. A car door slammed, followed by brisk footsteps. A moment later, a woman in a sheriff's uniform appeared at the barn door, her hand resting casually on her belt near her holster. Morning, Abigail, she nodded to Grandmother. Got a call from Dr. Bennett's office about an injured dog and a possible situation. Sheriff Carolyn. Grandmother Abigail greeted her. Thank you for coming so promptly. This gentleman claims to be the owner of this injured German Shepherd. Sheriff Caroline's sharp eyes took in the scene, lingering on Luna and then on Miller. Is that right? Could I see some identification, sir? Miller's jaw tightened visibly. Look, I don't carry ID to pick up my own dogs. This is ridiculous. It's standard procedure when ownership is in question, the sheriff replied calmly. Especially with a valuable breed like a German Shepherd. What do you mean in question? Miller's voice rose. Holst would be claiming them? Dr. Bennett stepped forward, holding his phone. I've just gotten off a call with Master Sergeant Thomas Walker of the Marine Corps' K-9 unit. This dog is Luna, a reared military working dog who was stolen from his home in Richmond 2 weeks ago along with her puppy. Sergeant Walker is on his way here now, the color drained from Miller's face. That's impossible. This is my dog. Then you won't mind waiting for Sergeant Walker to arrive to clear up the confusion, Sheriff Carolyn said, her tone making it clear this wasn't a suggestion. In the meantime, I'm interested in talking about that illegal trap. Those are felony charges in this county. Miller took a step back. I didn't set any trap. I'm just here for me dogs. Interesting that you knew there were 2 dogs. The sheriff noted. Dr. Bennett's call to me only mentioned 1 injured German Shepherd. Emma felt a surge of admiration for the adult's careful strategy. They had deliberately avoided mentioning Scout to test Miller's knowledge. Miller's eyes darted around the barn, finally landing on the tack room door. For a heart-hopping moment, Emma thought he was looking right at her through the crack. Scout must have sensed her fear because he squirmed in her arms, a small whimper. escaping before she could quiet him. Miller's head snapped toward the-sound. "The pup's in there, isn't it?" Before anyone could react, he lunged toward the tack room door. Sheriff Caroline moved with surprising speed for her stocky build, placing herself between Miller and the door. "Sir, I'm going to need you to step back," she commanded, one hand raised while the other moved to her holster. "This is insane," Miller snarled, his friendly facade completely gone now. "Those are my dogs, and I'm taking them now." Not without proper identification and proof of ownership, Sheriff Caroline stood her ground, and certainly not while that animal needs medical attention. Luna, sensing the tension, struggled to her feet despite her injury, a deep growl building in her chest as she stared at Miller. The effort clearly cost her as her legs trembled with the strain of supporting her weight. "Luna, down," Dr. Bennett said, gently, trying to prevent the injured dog from hurting herself further. But Luna remained standing, her eyes fixed on Miller with unmistakable recognition. Not the joyful recognition of an owner, but the wary recognition of a threat. The sheriff noticed. "That dog knows you, all right," she said to Miller, "but not as her owner." A new sound interrupted the tense standoff. A vehicle approaching fast, tires crunching on gravel before coming to an abrupt stop. Hurried footsteps approached the barn, and a man appeared in the doorway. He was tall and lean, dressed in civilian clothes, but carrying himself with unmistakable bearing. His face was drawn with exhaustion and worry, with a healing cut visible above his right eyebrow. The moment he entered, Luna's demeanor transformed. Despite her weakness, her tail began towing, and a high whine escaped her throat. The newcomer froze at the sight of the injured dog, naked relief washing over his features. "Luna," he breathed, dropping to one knee. The German shepherd tried to move toward him, but her strength failed, and she collapsed back to the ground with a whimper. The man crawled the remaining distance to her, hands gently cradling her head as he pressed his forehead to hers. "I found you, girl. I finally found you." The raw emotion in his voice brought tears to Emma's eyes. Scout wed softly in her arms, recognizing the newcomer's voice. Sheriff Caroline turned to Miller, whose face had gone ashen. "I believe we've resolved the question of ownership. Sir, now about that trap." Miller bolted for the door, shoving past the kneeling Manuel was too focused on Luna to react. Sheriff Caroline was after him in an instant, shouting for him to stop. Through the crack in the door, Emma could see Miller sprint for his truck, the sheriff close behind. In thick emotion, Emma quietly opened the tack room door and stepped out, with Scout still in her arms. The man, who must be Sergeant Walker, was so absorbed in examining Luna's injuries that he didn't notice her at first. His fingers gently pricked the bandage Dr. Bennett had applied, his face tightening with anger at the sight of the wound. "Who did this to you, girl?" he whispered. Scout gave an excited yip, finally drawing the man's attention. His head snapped up and his eyes widened at the sight of the puppy in Emma's arms. "Scout," he said incredulously, using the same name Emma had chosen. "You're alive too?" Scout wriggled frantically, trying to get to him. Emma approached cautiously and knelt down beside Luna. "I think he wants to say hello," she said softly, setting the puppy down. Scout bounded the short distance to Sergeant Walker, who scooped him up with his free hand, burying his face in the puppy's fur for a moment before looking back at Emma. "You found them?" he asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Scout found me?" Emma corrected. "He came to my window last night and led me to Luna. She was caught in a trap in the woods behind our property. She's been searching," Dr. Bennett explained, kneeling beside them. "I suspect she escaped from whoever took her and was looking for a way back to you when she got caught in that trap." The puppy was free to move around and went for help. Sergeant Walker shook his head in amazement. "She was trying to come home," he said, more to himself than to them. Then looking at Emma with eyes bright with unshed tears, he added, "And she sent Scout to find the right person to help. These dogs are special. Luna was one of best tracking dogs in the service. She can judge character better than most humans I know." Emma felt a flush outright at his words. Scout is really smart. He knew exactly what he needed me to do. Grandmother Abigail approached carrying a glass of water which she handed to Sergeant Walker. "Your dogs have had a rough time, young man. So have you from the looks of it." He accepted the water gratefully. "They broke into my home 2 weeks ago. Hit me from behind when I walked in on them taking Luna and Scout. By the time I got out of the hospital, they had a 3-day head start." He gently stroked Luna's head. "I've been searching ever since." Outside, they could hear the sheriff's voice as she apparently apprehended Miller. Sergeant Walker's expression hardened. "That's one of them," he said. "There were at least 2 others. They're part of an illegal dog fighting operation. They steal dogs with strong bloodlines to breed or train as fighters." His voice broke slightly. Luna was too old and too well trained to be of use to them. "But Scout," he couldn't finish the sentence, instead holding the puppy closer. Dr. Bennett cleared his throat. "Sergeant, I need to be clear about something. Luna's condition is serious. That trap caused significant damage and the wound is badly infected. She needs emergency veterinary care as soon as possible." "Then let's not waste any more time," Sergeant Walker said, immediately decisive. "Where's the nearest emergency vet?" "Charlottesville," Dr. Bennett replied. "About an hour's drive. I've called ahead and they're expecting her. I'll take her now." Sergeant Walker began to gather Luna in his arms, but Dr. Bennett stopped him. "She need to be transported carefully. I have a backboard in my truck we can use to move her without causing more damage." He looked at his watch. "If we leave now, we can get her there with several hours to spare before her condition becomes critical." Emma watched the exchange, a knot forming in her stomach. Everything was happening so fast. Luna and Scout had found their real owner, which was wonderful, but now they would be leaving. She hadn't realized how much she had already come to care for them in the few short hours since Scout had appeared at her window. As if sensing her distress, Scout wriggled in Sergeant Walker's arms, looking back at Emma with those soulful brown eyes. The sergeant followed the puppy's gaze, his expression softening when he saw Emma's face. "You saved Fembuff," he said gently. "I can never thank you enough for that." Emma nodded, trying to be brave. "I'm just glad they found you. Scout really missed you. Luna too." "Tell you what," Sergeant Walker said, glancing at Grandmother Abigail as if seeking permission. "Why don't you come with us to the animal hospital? I could use the help with Scout while other doctors work on Luna." Grandmother Abigail smiled at the hopeful look that bloomed on Emma's face. "I think that sounds like a fine idea if your parents agree, and I suspect they will, given the circumstances." For the first time since the ordeal began, Emma felt a spark of hope. She might be saying goodbye to Luna and Scout today, but at least she would have a little more time with them first, and more importantly, they would be safe and back with the person who loved them most in the world. But as Dr. Bennett and Sergeant Walker carefully lifted Luna onto the backboard, her pained whimper cutting through the barn, Emma was reminded that Luna wasn't safe yet. That clock was still ticking, and they had a race against time to save her life. The truck jostled down the country road, every bump causing Luna to whimper despite the careful padding Dr. Bennett had arranged on the backboard. Emma sat in the back seat with Scout curled in her lap, his brown eyes fixed on his mother. In the cargo space behind them, Sergeant Walker drove with tense concentration, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. "How much longer?" Emma asked quietly, stroking Scout's soft fur. "About 30 minutes, Sergeant Walker replied, glancing at her in the rear-view mirror. "She's holding on, Emma. "Luna's the toughest dog I've ever known." Emma nodded, trying to believe him. The gravity of Luna's condition had become clearer as they'd carefully loaded her into Dr. Bennett's truck. The proud German Shepherd could barely lift her head now, her breathing shallow and labored. The infection was taking hold faster than they'd anticipated. "Maybe you could tell me about her," Emma suggested. "About how you met Luna?" A small smile softened Sergeant Walker's worried expression. "That's a good idea. Luna would like that." As the truck sped toward Charlottesville, Sergeant Walker's deep voice filled the cab with stories of a remarkable partnership. 4 years earlier, Thomas Walker stepped off the transport plane into the sweltering heat of Afghanistan, squinting against the brightness after the dim interior of the aircraft around him. Other Marines were gathering their gear, many greeting the handlers and dogs waiting to meet them. Sergeant Walker, a lieutenant, approached, clipboard in hand. "This way, please. Your new partner's eager to meet you." Thomas followed him across the bay, tarmac toward a series of kennels. He'd worked with military dogs before, but after losing his previous canine partner to an IED, he'd requested a transfer to non-canine duties. 6 months of desk work had nearly driven him mad, and when the opportunity to return to the canine unit arose, he'd seized it despite the lingering grief and guilt. "She's one of our best," the lieutenant was saying. 2 successful deployments, Aldi. Specialized in tracking and detection. Handler was injured last month. Getting shipped home for good. They stopped in front of a kennel where a striking black and tan German Shepherd sat at perfect attention. The dog's amber eyes met Thomas's with an intensity that took him aback. "Sergeant Thomas Walker, meet Luna," the lieutenant said. "Canine Luna, meet your new handler." Luna didn't move, didn't wag her tail or bark in greeting. She simply watched him, assessing. "She's particular," the lieutenant explained. "Doesn't warm up to just Onion." Thomas knelt slowly, maintaining eye contact. "Hello, Luna," he said quietly. "Looks like we'll be working together." For a long moment, Luna remained motionless. Then deliberately she stood and approached the kennel door, pressing her nose against the chain link where Thomas's fingers rested. The lieutenant whistled low. "Well, I'll be damned. She must see something in you she likes." From that moment, "We were a team," Sergeant Walker continued as the truck rounded a bend in the road. "Luna saved my life more times than I can count, sniffing out hidden explosives, warning me about ambushes. But more than that, she kept me sane in the middle of a war zone. She gave me something to focus on beyond the chaos." Emma listened entranced, while continuing to comfort Scout. "Is that why you kept her when she retired?" "Exactly." Walker nodded. "When Luna took shrapnel in her hindquarters during our last deployment, the military decided she'd earned her retirement. By then, we'd been through so much together. The thought of being separated was unthinkable. I adopted her officially the day she received her honorable discharge." He glanced back at Luna, worry creasing his brow. "That was 2 years ago. We've been inseparable ever since." When Scout came along, an unexpected surprise from a neighbor's German Shepherd that got into my yard, Luna took to motherhood like's been preparing for it her whole life. The truck hit a pothole, and Luna let out a pained whine. Scout immediately responded with an anxious whimper, trying to wiggle out of Emma's grasp. "It's okay," Emma soothed, holding the puppy securely. "Your mom's going to be okay." Sergeant Walker checked his watch. 20 minutes out. "We're making good time." 3 days earlier, Luna paced the confines of the dark shed, her muscles tense despite her exhaustion. The heavy chain around her neck clinketed softly with each movement, the sound amplifying her frustration. Nearby, Scout slept fitfully in a small wire crate too small for his growing body. 2 weeks had passed since the men had taken them from home. 2 weeks off strange smells, rough handling, and separation from the human she dedicated her life to protecting. Luna had been trained not to show fear or aggression unless commanded, but her patience was wearing thin. She could smell other dogs nearby, frightened, aggressive, sick. The scent of blood and pain hung in the air, triggering every protective instinct in her body. Feastmen were dog fighters. She had encountered their kind before during her service. She knew what fate awaited dogs in their care, not Scout, not her pup. Luna had been waiting, conserving her strength, watching patterns. The youngest man was careless. He left the shed door ajar when bringing their meager food and water. Today he'd been distracted by a phone call, turning his back momentarily. It was enough. Luna lunged, the chain snapping taut, then giving way as the rusty bolt holding it pulled free from the rotting wood wall. The man turned, shouting in surprise, but Luna was already moving, knocking him aside with her powerful body. She grabbed Scout's crate in her teeth, the wire cutting into her gums as she dragged it out the door into the fading governing light. Once outside, she used her paws and teeth to pry open the crate door, freeing the frightened puppy. Scout pressed against her legs, whimpering in confusion and fear. Lana nudged him forward. They needed to run to put distance between themselves and this place of suffering. Her military training guided her. Find cover, avoid open areas, head for higher ground. They ran through the night, Luna pushing Scout to keep moving whenever he tired. Her keen senses guided them away from roads and houses where the men might search for them. They crossed streams to mask their scent, kept to the shadows of trees and undergrowth. By dawn, Luna was exhausted but determined. The terrain was starting to look familiar. They were approaching the boundaries of her territory, the land surrounding her home with Thomas. Scout was struggling now, his small body not built for such an endurance test. Lana picked him up by the scruff, carrying him for stretches before her own strength would falter. They were close. She could sense it, just a few more miles to safety. Then came the searing pain, the cruel metal teeth snapping air into her hind leg. Luna dropped Scout as she fell, a yelp of agony escaping bare she could suppress it. The trap held fast, its chain anchored to a buried stake. No amount of pulling or biting at the mechanism would release it. Scout circled her anxiously, licking her face, whining his distress. Luna nuzzled him, then made a decision. Shackled and free herself, but Scout could still reach safety. Using the last of her strength, she nudged him away, giving the specific bark pattern that meant go in their private language. Scout resisted, unwilling to leave her. Luna growled softly, insistent. Finally, reluctantly, the puppy began to move away, looking back constantly for reassurance. Find help, Luna's eyes seemed to say. Find Thomas. We're almost there, Sergeant Walker announced, pulling Emma back. To the present. Through the windshield, she could see the outskirts of Charlottesville, buildings replacing the fields and forests of the countryside. Will she be okay? Emma asked, unable to keep the worry from her voice. Walker's eyes met hers. Briefly in the mirror. Luna's a fighter, and now she has even more reason to pull through. She's found Scout and she's met you. Emma blushed slightly at being included in the reasons for Luna to survive. I didn't really do anything special. Scout did all the work finding me. You listened, Walker said simply. Most adults wouldn't have paid attention to a stray puppy scratching at their window in the middle of the night. They'd have shed him away or called animal control. You saw what he was trying to tell you. The truth of his words settled over Emma. She had understood Scout in a way that others might not have. The same way she'd always connected with animals when human relationships felt confusing and difficult. The emergency veterinary hospital came into view. A modern single-story building with ambulance bays marked specifically for animal transport. As they pulled in, staff and scrubs emerged with a gurney, alerted by Dr. Bennett's earlier call. Everything happened quickly after that. Luna was gently transferred to the gurney and whisked inside. Sergeant Walker following close behind after handing Scout to Emma with a hurried "watch him for me." Emma and Scout stood in the parking lot suddenly alone in the swirl of activity. The puppy trembled in her arms, whining softly as his mother disappeared from view. "She's going to be okay," Emma whispered, trying to convince both of them. "The doctors will help her." Inside the waiting room, Emma found a quiet corner to sit with Scout. The puppy was restless, unable to settle despite Isaac's housegen every time. The doors to the treatment area opened, his head would snap up, ears alert for any sound of his mother. Sergeant Walker emerged after 20 minutes, his face drawn but hopeful. "They're starting treatment now. The infection is serious. They're giving her 4 antibiotics and preparing to clean the wound surgically." He sat heavily in the chair beside Emma. "The vet says we get her here just in time, a few more hours." He didn't finish the sentence. "But she'd be okay now, right?" Emma asked anxiously. Walker ran a hand over his face. "They think so. The next few hours will be critical." He looked down at Scout, who immediately crawled into his lap, seeking comfort. "At least this little guy is in good shape, thanks to you." "Thanks to Luna," Emma corrected. "She protected him somehow. Dr. Bennett said she probably carried him part of the way." "That sounds like Luna." A small, proud smile flickered across Walker's tired face, always putting everyone else first. They sat in silence for a few moments, both lost in their own thoughts as they watched Scout finally succumb to exhaustion, curling up across both their laps as if unwilling to choose between them. "You know," Walker said eventually, "Luna must have been desperate to escape if she risked running with an 8-week-old puppy. She wouldn't have left unless the alternative was worse." Emma thought about the shed Luna had been kept in, the fighting dogs she'd smelled. Dr. Bennett said they were dog fighters, that they wanted to use Scout for fighting. Walker's jaw tightened. Dog fighting is a federal felony. If we can find their operation, those men will face serious prison time. He looked down at Scout, gently stroking the puppy's head. Luna probably saved his life by getting him out of there, even at the cost of her own safety. The waiting room doors opened and Sheriff Caroline entered, her uniform dusty and her expression determined. She spotted them and walked over. "Thought I might find you folks here," she said, settling into a chair opposite them. "How's the dog doing?" "In surgery," Walker replied. "They're hopeful," the sheriff nodded. "Good to hear. I wanted to update you. We've detained Jackson Miller and he's not being cooperative, but his truck yielded some interesting evidence. We found blood in the cargo area that likely belongs to Luna, along with some suspicious equipment consistent with dogfighting operations." "Any sign of the other men involved?" Walker asked tensely. "Not yet, but we've alerted neighboring counties to be on the lookout." Sheriff Caroline's eyes fell on Scout, who was sleeping soundly now. "That little fellow's had quite an adventure, hasn't he?" "More than any puppy should," Walker agreed, his hand protectively covering Scout's small buddy. The sheriff turned to Emma, her stern face softening. "Your grandmother called. She's on her way here with your parents. Said to tell you they're very proud of what you did today." Emma's eyes widened. "My parents are coming together. That's what she said." Sheriff Caroline stood, adjusting her belt. "I'd best get back to the station. We'll need statements from both of you when you have time, but it can wait until tomorrow." She touched the brim of her hat in a casual salute. "Sergeant Walker, it's an honor to meet you. Thank you for your service." After she left, Emma sat quietly, processing the news that her parents were on their way. Would they be angry? Worried? Would they understand why she had to help Luna and Scout? "You've got something on your mind." Walker observed gently. Emma hesitated, then admitted, "My parents don't really understand about me and animals. They think I should spend more time with people. Ah, Walker nodded thoughtfully. You know, in the military, they selected me for canine handling because I wasn't always great with people either. Too direct, too intense, they said. But with dogs, perfect match. Some people are just wired that way. We connect better with animals than with most humans. That's how I feel, Emma said, relief washing over her that someone understood. Animals make sense. People are complicated. That they are, Walker agreed with a chuckle. But every now and then you meet people who get it, who understand the connection without having to explain it. As if on cue, the hospital doors opened again, and Emma's parents hurried in, followed by Grandmother Abigail. Her mother's face was tight with worry, while her father looked around the waiting room with clear anxiety. Emma, her mother called, rushing over. Are you all right? Your grandmother told us what happened. She stopped short at the sight of Scout, curled up across Emma and Sergeant Walker's laps. The puppy had awakened at the commotion and was regarding the newcomers with cautious interest. Mom, Dad, this is Sergeant Walker, Emma said quickly. He's Luna's real owner, and this is Scout. Her father stepped forward, extending his hand to Walker. Michael Parker. This is me wife, Carol. Thank you for looking after our daughter. Your daughter is Theon, who saved my dogs, Walker replied, shaking Michael's hand firmly. You shall be incredibly proud of her. Carol Parker knelt in front of Emma, her eyes circling her daughter's face. We were so worried when your grandmother called, she said. You found an injured dog in the woods. Scout found me, Mom, Emma corrected gently. He came to my window for help. His mom was caught in a trap and she washed really bad. Grandmother Abigail joined them, settling into a chair with a soft groan. Our Emma knew exactly what to do. That little puppy led her straight to his mama, and Emma had the good sense to come get me instead of trying to handle it alone. Carol looked from Emma to Scout, who was watching her intently. You really understood what the puppy wanted? That he needed help? Emma nodded. It was obvious, Mom. He was trying so hard to tell me. To Emma's surprise, her mother reached out tentatively to touch Scout's head. Theppapi responded by sniffing her fingers, then giving them a small lick of approval. He likes you, Emma said, hope rising in her chest. Carol smiled faintly. He seems like a very special dog. Her eyes met Emma's, something like understanding beginning to dawn in them. Just like, you're a very special girl. Before Emma could respond, a doctor in surgical scrubs emerged from the treatment area, heading directly toward their group. Sergeant Walker? Sheest, and when he nodded continued, I'm Dr. Lavigne. I performed Luna surgery. We've removed the damaged tissue and are administering strong antibiotics to combat the infection. Is going to be okay? Walker and Emma asked simultaneously. Thanks for watching.